Hello, one and all. Thank you very much for joining me for my podcast, The Engel. I am Fort Worth Star-Telegram columnist Mac Engel. My guest for this episode is someone who quite accidentally kicked my career down paths away from sports, and for that I am eternally grateful. I met him back in 2000 or 2001, and at the time I was a beat writer covering the Texas Rangers. Now, at the time, I had a lot of other interests away from sports, something that this podcast has given me the opportunity to further explore. The same certainly can be said of my employer, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, which has been so kind over the years to allow me the opportunity for the chance to report, opine, and pursue other topics ranging from movies, culture, books, travel, pop culture, politics, news, and in this case, newsmakers. I do often remind myself how fortunate I have been to cover subjects that are further afield from sports, even though I still love sports. Now, this began for me back in 1999, after I had seen the movie The Insider in the movie theater. Remember back when people did that? The movie stars Russell Crowe, Al Pacino, Christopher Plummer, and is directed by Michael Mann. I'm a big Michael Mann fan. Michael Mann also co-wrote The Insider. Michael Mann is best known as the man who created the hit TV series Miami Vice, directed popular movies such as Heat, Thief, and The Last of the Mohicans, among other titles. The movie The Insider was actually based on a Vanity Fair article about the story of former big tobacco scientist Dr. Jeffrey Wigand, and specifically his ordeal with CBS's top-rated news show, 60 Minutes, and its struggles to air his interview. It was an interview where he revealed that the tobacco companies manipulated its lethal product to be even more addictive.
You go public and 30 million people hear what you gotta say. Nothing, I mean nothing, will ever be the same again.
Now, the work we did here is confidential, not for public scrutiny, any more than our one's family matters. We're very serious about protecting our interests.
He's got something to say, he wants to say it, I want it on 60 Minutes.
Maybe for the audience, it's just voyeurism, something to do on a Sunday night, and maybe it won't change a thing. And people like myself and my family are left hung out to dry, used up, alone.
What does this guy have to say
Now, don't be paranoid, Jeff.
that threatens these people?
That isn't cigarettes are bad for you.
Who is this?
They have no right to hide behind a corporate agreement. He can talk, we can air it.
The worst kind of an organized smear campaign against a whistleblower.
Shoplifting, failing to pay child support.
They can paint everything with that brush.
What are you going to do now? You're going to finesse me, lawyer me some
Mike.
more? Try Mr. Wallace.
If we aired this segment,
I was told, don't talk. Mind my own business.
we could be a grave risk.
We're doing this with or without you, Lowell.
Are you a businessman or are you a newsman? He's only the key witness in the biggest public health reform issue in U.S. history. Does he go on television and tell the truth? Yes. Is it newsworthy? Yes. Are we gonna air it? Of course not. Why? Because he's not telling the truth? No, because he is telling the truth, and the more truth he tells, the worse it gets.
You manipulated me into this.
I fought for you, and I still fight.
The American public need to know.
Jeffrey!
And you wish you hadn't come forward?
Dr. Wigand's deposition will be part of this record.
You wish you hadn't blown the whistle?
Do I think it's worth it?
I told the truth. It's valid and true and
These
provable.
people, that's not the point whether you tell the truth or not.
Wigand's interview and subsequent court testimony ultimately led to the nation's four largest tobacco companies agreeing to the largest civil litigation settlement in the history of the United States, which in 1998 totaled about $250 billion. That agreement also included dramatic reform throughout the tobacco industry. Dr. Wigand went on to become one of the world's foremost experts on the dangers of tobacco, and he used his expertise and fame to serve as an educator for people all over the world. He's also one of the foremost experts in the dangerous art of whistleblowing. I originally met him more than 20 years ago. That interview took me about 6 months to set up. I kept peppering him with emails, and he finally agreed to do it. So I drove out to what was then a very little place called Frisco, Texas, to meet him in the lobby of a Holiday Inn, where upon greeting him, he said, "You've got to try their chocolate chip cookies." He was right. They were really good. So he got into my red Pontiac Grand Am. I drove him to a Starbucks. He had some tea. I had some frou-frou drink. And I got to talk to Dr. Jeffrey Wigand for about an hour, maybe a little bit more. It was a great interview then, and it's a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jeffrey Wigand.
Just had a very unexpected victory in the Netherlands.
What was it?
Well, 9 years ago, I was in the Netherlands and working with their tobacco control group folks and people at the hospitals that started a program for kids. And one of the things they were trying to look at is the revised testing for filtered cigarettes. And they were looking at, is there any litigative issues? And so I demonstrated for them the blocked versus unblocked FTC testing. So when you block the filter ventilation holes, you deliver up to 4 times the amount of tar, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, which is pretty important in Europe because there's a label on the product that says this is what you're getting. So people who are a little health conscious go and look at the numbers rather than quit and look for the lowest tar nicotine. And so we unveiled it, and I showed them the semi-invisible, unless you're looking for it, laser perforations around the circumference of the filter. And it started litigation against the tobacco industry for deceptive practices. And it just came down from the Supreme Court of the Netherlands that they have to revise the test method and remove all the product that's on the shelves and replace with product that's been measured appropriately, which then, of course, involves a separate part of the government, which is NIM and IVM, which is basically their /CDC/FDA. And they have not been using the block versus unblocked like Canada's been using since I've been there for almost 15 years now. And Massachusetts has been doing it versus blocked versus unblocked.
Educate me real quick. What you're describing sounds vaguely similar to what was going on in the 90s when you blew the whistle on Brian Williamson. Are there similarities? Are there parallels? Or are these different types of product manipulations with a cigarette?
They've been there. I've been on that case since 1996, and now we've been able to get to any traction in this country, which is somewhat backward in terms of this regulation. Tobacco product. They can't have package labeling, as well the rest of the world has. They don't require labeling on the package. They have refused to ban menthol, which allows the industry to target African Americans. Yeah, menthol. Menthol cigarettes cause a very different effect on the smoker in terms of anesthetizing the respiratory tract so they can inhale more and deeper.
Wow.
So that's why. So they have to now develop a new testing methodology in Europe, or particularly the Netherlands, to accommodate the open and closed filters, so they can put a accurate assessment numbers on the package. I don't know if you've ever traveled to Europe, pick up a pack of cigarettes, there's a big white label on the side.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
Not tar, nicotine, and carbon monoxide. So that just came through, which was Maury writing a paper about it.
So even though you're celebrating your 80th birthday, you're not slowing down in what I think can kind of be called the third act of your long career. It seems to me what you're describing. Pardon?
It's the first act. It's still
First
going.
act. That's great. Well, I mean, your trajectory changed quite a bit 25 years ago, did it not?
In 1994.
94? Okay, yeah, more than that. Wow, gosh, I can't believe it's been that long. So
Yeah.
I do want to backtrack because I want to go back to that point in your life because you're known as a whistleblower, and maybe you might be the most significant whistleblower in the history of the United States. At least you're in that echelon.
Yes, I am.
If someone was contemplating doing that on a government agency, on an employer, taking the risks that you would take, that you took, what would you tell them in terms of how to do it, and maybe to avoid some of the unknowingly maybe mistakes that you made in that process?
Well, I talk to potential persons of conscience or truth tellers every day, calling me for advice what to do. And I don't have any really good, succinct advice other than what do you believe, what do you know, what is substantiated with documents. And that will go a long way. Second is you need to have some specific connections with the media. Because without the media, much of what I did would never ever become popular. 60 Minutes, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post. Okay. You need to understand that this is not a cheap process, that you're going to need specific legal help. And either you're going to get it pro bono or you're going to get it through paying for it. And it's not cheap. I didn't pay for any of my litigation. It was pro bono for me from people from South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, New York, Indiana, where the attorney generals.
So, you know, when you and I spoke back in 2001, I vividly recall you telling me, I think you said it to me twice, that you regained your moral compass.
Yes.
That stuck with me. Was that a priority for you when you started this, Doctor, that you felt like you had compromised it in the name of, oh, I don't know, a job or just making a lot of money?
Well, money was never an issue to me in my career. I mean, I always made good money.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever company I made with, and I always made a significant increase in management responsibility as I moved from company to company. The hook that got me involved with the tobacco industry was, how could I use my scientific talents, my medical knowledge, to make a safer cigarette? And so that, coupled with a substantial pay hike, healthcare benefits to my family. As you know, I may have told you, I have one daughter that lives in Texas.
Yeah.
Had a significant medical issue. And at the same time, we would get to move closer to family in Kentucky. So when I did the calculus of all of this, I said, I'll do it. So I signed on in 1989 in December, and then it was go. And as I continued at the level of responsibility I had as a vice president, I got to see things that were in different silos that never integrated. And so the industry that I work for particularly, but the industry as a whole, deliberately and consciously lied about what their product does and what it does. Changing the packaging with Salem cigarettes or Cool cigarette to put them in the category of the way an African American smokes cigarettes. They turn the pack upside down, they peel around, and they tap it down. So what's hanging out is the business end of the cigarette. And that was deliberately launched in Philadelphia and directed particularly to the African American minorities. Menthol cigarettes.
Do you still see, because I remember when we spoke, you spoke specifically about the tobacco industry and how it targeted young girls.
Yes.
Basically as an appetite suppressant, which obviously it had worked successfully. Successfully is a hard word to use, but it had worked for generations, decades. I don't see people smoke very much anymore, doctor. So what methods of...
I'm Dallas Fort Worth, because if you remember when I was there, I worked with the mayor of Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
He was in supporting of smoke-free environments.
But the companies still exist. So what methods of marketing are they using now to attract customers?
Many of the same. Vaping.
Vaping, yeah. Okay.
How do I deliver nicotine? And a large bolus of nicotine. They have not substantively changed. Okay, there are some changes around the fringes of the issue, but they continue to work. They continue supplying nicotine. They now have a next generation product for vaping, okay, which, by the way, is epidemic in middle schools.
In middle schools?
Middle schools.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, middle schools.
Is a vape... I've read stories of how a vape cartridge can blow up, but is a vape experience the same as a cigarette?
It has a resistance to draw. Okay, it delivers a bolus of nicotine, depending on what you get, anywhere between 0 to 50 milligrams of nicotine. So you can get a whole pack of cigarettes in one dose if you want it.
A pack of cigarettes and a dose.
Yeah, a pack of cigarettes, average cigarettes, say Marlboro Light, but the light is not used anymore. Well, Marlboro Blue, 20 cigarettes in there delivers approximately 22 milligrams of nicotine.
So what you're describing to me is a vape, even though it's friendly inside a restaurant or a bar, so to speak, is okay. So I just don't see it very much. I know people are doing it. I don't see it very much. But what you're describing is that something that's far more potentially dangerous to a person's health,
yes,
than the cigarette.
Mac, it's children.
God, that's awful.
From fifth grade.
Fifth grade.
Yeah, from fifth grade up.
So when you and I spoke,
summer camp for the kids.
That's so bad. You know, in some ways, it looks to me like America has made tremendous strides when it comes to tobacco use, because I just don't see it as much. Just because we don't see it as much, are we fooling ourselves about that?
To a certain degree. I mean, you have to know that the target of the market of the industry is children, 7 to 12.
7 to 12.
If you hook them early, you have them for life.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I know.
And you know, they're particularly targeting of African American and Hispanic communities. Continue targeting of girls, women, and of course those that just do it out of spite. People who start now, they'll pick up a pack of Lucky Strike and start there. It blows your head off.
You know, you mentioned the Netherlands, and I know for a long time you thought, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, Europe was kind of a lost cause. But the last time I was there, it seemed to me, that's been a number of years ago I was there, but it seemed to me I saw fewer smokers there than I'd ever seen before.
Yeah.
Have they made in Western Europe, Germany, France, Italy? I didn't see it as much. Have they reduced it? Have they done
I say worldwide tobacco companies, Philip Morris,
Mhm.
Brown and Williamson, or BAT Industries, continue doing what they're doing. Okay, when the lawsuits ended here in this country, they were also exported overseas.
Yeah.
And the awareness of what was going on through publications in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times, about how a cigarette is designed to addict and ultimately kills you. That knowledge had never been out ever until 1994, 95. And so that knowledge filtered its way to Europe. Generally, there's a lag time in Europe between the United States and what goes on in Europe, about anywhere between 3 to 5 years. Years.
Wow. Okay.
And you go to Asia, and particularly Japan, the shift that goes on here happens also 5 to 10 years. Right. And I would say in Japan, you have a unique market segment is that nobody really starts really smoking until 1819. They're not getting the kid, but they have actively promoted charcoal filters remove all the poisons. They have, yeah. Do you remember Tareyton?
Yeah, by name.
Clark. They had a carbon activated carbon fiber aspect of the filter, which is supposed to capture and reduce aldehydes.
Does it work?
Yeah, somewhat, but not, doesn't remove all of it. The filter was only put on after the 1950s. The filter was put on because when you smoke a cigarette without a filter, you get a lot of little pieces of tobacco in your mouth.
Right.
So people say, oh, the filter. What's it? When you think of something that says it's filtered, what's the matter? What comes to mind?
A filter?
Yeah.
I think of something like a coffee filter.
Yeah.
I think of something where it's basically blocking other items from coming through.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah, but if a filter in the late 50s and 60s and 70s did virtually nothing.
So it was a filter and a protector in name only.
But that's the imagery people got.
Yeah.
In the 50s, the whole studies of Winder and Dahl, etc., about the link between smoking and lung cancer. People got all rattled up.
What did you think about America's changing attitude towards the legalization of marijuana?
I have a real problem with it.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Well, first of all, you're legalizing for profit an experimental product that's never been tested. Tell me where you've done a clinical trial. Tell me where you have done the statistical studies that allow you to say it's safe to use. It's not. Marijuana has drastic effect on the brain tissue, particularly of young people. It doesn't take pain away.
Oh, you don't think it's a pain reliever?
No. Prove it to me. Show me the data that's the gold standard of testing of a product.
Well, how do you necessarily prove, and I need you to educate me on this, when you say prove it to me that this isn't effective against pain relief, isn't pain relief, wouldn't that be sort of subjective? It's the person who says, yeah, I feel better now, or I don't feel like I'm as much.
There are ways of measuring it.
Because I don't know what to think about it. I think it was a cash grab by states for sure.
Exactly.
But, and then companies that wanted to just make an ungodly amount of money. What would you guess? Obviously it's not legalized everywhere, doctor, but if you had to guess.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, but it's coming. It's like gambling. It's coming.
I know.
All these things are coming.
Go ahead.
No, what would you guess we're going to see the consequences of this legalization will look like in
15 years,
Yeah, I was going to say 10. Let's go
20 years.
15.
15 to 20 years, I think you will see. If you smoke a marijuana joint, are you getting the same combustion product that you get with a cigarette?
That's what we're going to see?
Yeah.
Will it be the healthcare fiasco that cigarettes proved to be, and ultimately why that case was successful? Your case?
I think so.
So,
Nobody's done that study. Who has done that work that they just allowed people to run with unsubstantiated claims? I mean, I got
well, who would do the study? Some prominent university?
University. The company is marketing the product at enormous profit.
Why would they do the study?
I mean,
why would the company, like, what's the financial incentive for the company?
Well, you're advertising a product. Well, you're advertising a product is safe. You're advertising a product that delivers, THC that has no effect on you. You can say, it's a health risk, and the only way you're going to convince me that it's useful is provide to me the data that allows you to substantiate the claims that have been made.
Have you gotten in this debate with somebody who sits there and tries to, other side of the fence on you? Like, what's their counter argument to your position?
You know Sanjay Gupta?
Sure, yeah.
I got in a debate with him at the University of Buffalo Medical School when I was getting a postgraduate award.
And his position was what?
He was very pro THC, cannabis.
What did you think? Well, what did you think of his argument?
Quite frankly, I know you're taping this. I think it's bullshit.
It's okay.
Why
do you think it was bullshit?
He didn't have any data to support it. He had one anecdotal data. That's not a data that lets thousands and thousands of people use it. Think about it.
The one thing I will never trust ever, and I know you don't, I'm not going to trust the company that has a financial stake in that product, whatever it is, Coca-Cola, name it. I'm not going to trust their study. I'm not going to trust the oil company that just had an oil spill in the middle of wherever.
Yeah.
And if they hire a couple of Ivy League, environmental professors to sit there and say, oh, gee whiz, we think in 30 years, this spill is actually going to be good for the environment. I want to see their bank account, and I want to see the 6-figure check that they got from that oil company.
Well, the tobacco industry has many canceled checks from a prominent pathologist at Yale, at Harvard.
I'm sure.
They paid them big bucks. Even, ever heard of the name Giobata Gori?
That one I'm not familiar with.
Gori was a NIDA employee who said that the best way to make cigarettes safer is to take out some of the hazards, take out some of the additives that make it easy to become addicted, substantially addicted.
That's great. So, when you're talking about now, sounds to me like where America was with cigarettes back in the 40s. My dad's 90. He's from New York, like yourself, and he's from 90. And my mom was addicted to cigarettes for decades. And I would hear stories from them both about how for a long time cigarettes were sold and marketed as very safe and very healthy.
That's why they made the packaging white.
Yep.
So they put safe. Doctors advertising the white coat.
Right. So it took decades for America or the consumer to wake up and say, well, wait a minute, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Are we going down the same, in your prediction, are we going down that same path with?
I think there are many similarities back. Many similarities.
When you look at, so when it comes to cigarettes, because I read this story about Southeast Asia, are cigarettes now mostly a third world and lower socioeconomic product?
That is correct. Okay, it's easy to BS somebody who's not educated.
Right. Okay.
It's easy to go and sell something that addicts people, they have to come back for it.
When you look at what you did in the 90s to that industry, I think the prediction was, Doctor, it was going to be an atomic bomb, and Philip Morris and Reynolds and all these companies were just going to not go away, but really, really dramatically go through a major restructuring and downsizing and loss in profit. Did that happen?
Some of it did, but you have to realize that the $365 billion to be paid over 25 years by the tobacco industry was supposed to be shared with the states, 20% of that money to go into prevention, treatment. Okay, that's not happened. I can name the states on one hand that actually use the money for health cause related issues, and like Kansas, you're okay.
You like that? Yeah, it's my alma mater.
I know. I'm going to tell you something about Kansas. Kansas took the money, billions, and what did they use it for?
Roads,
bridges, libraries.
Libraries. Okay, so they bought some books. That's good. That's good.
And it wasn't so the 20% that is supposed to work. How about Mississippi putting 20% in? How about Florida?
What did Mississippi do it? Because they were ground zero for that case. Like, what did they do with it?
They take 20% of their money,
Uh-huh.
$3.8 billion, I believe. And they took 20% of that. They hired a nurse and they put education programs in middle schools.
Would you say that was money well spent?
I think there is, some of it's well spent. I think.
That's good.
I've been doing this now for 25 odd years, and the most effective part is going into a middle school and teaching the kids about it.
Do they listen to you? It's a middle school kid. You never know.
Or you got this movie guy coming in, and so but you can actually take them through, quote. And I show them the quote actually in the industry doc. We don't smoke this shit reserved for the dumb, the black, the ignorant, and the poor.
Wow.
That's a statement made by RJR, marketing executive. You've never heard?
That statement was made. You blocked out for a second there, Doc.
I didn't.
No, I know you didn't say it. That was the executive of RJ Reynolds Tobacco.
Yep. That is now married to BAT Industries, the parent company of Brown & Williamson. So they're continuing to carve out, okay? They have maintained and protected their profit by price increases.
By price increases.
Yeah. The whole cost of Philip Morris for the cost of the master settlement to them was gained back immediately by a 25% increase on cigarettes. So net, what do they pay?
What did they pay? They just covered their losses. They were okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you're 80 years old. What do you want to see in the next 10 years in terms of anti-tobacco? I guess legislation or just societal attitudes?
I feel very frustrated in my own country.
Do you?
Yeah, you go look at Canada. As you know, I worked for the Minister of Health of Canada. I set up the whole program for tobacco denormalization in Canada.
Tobacco denormalization?
Take tobacco out of its normally accepted environments. No smoking in restaurants, cognitive awareness of what it does to you and the people around you. What are the additives there for? So Canada has gone from roughly 20% smoking to almost 9%.
Wow.
So there's
put that program in place.
Yeah, they put lots of children smoke-free environments. Right?
When did you put that program in place, Doctor?
Where would I put it in place?
Yeah, what year?
95, 96.
So in about 25 years, they've seen an 11% consumption reduction.
It takes dedicated people, money, and elected officials to do the right thing.
I can't. Can you see that happening here? That means that you've got
Hasn't the firebed of this, if it started the whole thing, started here, and not in New York City, New York State, or Chicago. It happened in Jackson, Mississippi. And one thinks of Mississippi, what do they think? Yeah,
a lot of negative things: civil war,
yeah,
flagrant racism, poverty, bureaucracy that props up the city. I mean, name it. None of it's. I mean, not much of it's good. Bad water. I mean, on and on. When you look back on it now, at tremendous cost to your personal life, given the way the industry has shifted and morphed to cover its losses, are you glad you did it?
Hell yeah.
Great. Thank God you said that. I was going to be scared you were going to say no, it wasn't worth it.
I have New Zealand will outlaw tobacco products in its country in 2025.
Wow.
Yeah, I work with the New Zealand Parliament, particularly but the native, this is called the Maori.
Mm-hmm.
They grow it, they can use it. They can't buy a pack of cigarettes. And that makes it even more fun because New Zealand, BAT industry is building a new plant. I'm sorry. They can take all that concrete and steel and shove it.
Do you ever hear from tobacco executives anymore? Do you ever get an email?
Court.
Oh, in court. But do you ever get threatened anymore?
Doesn't scare me anymore. I mean, I get threats.
Threats.
Electronic threats. I get physical threats. I have had damage to my personal property, my home. It's always related to my testifying in what's called the penalty stage of litigation, which looks at what kind of egregious conduct did you use for what happened. That's mostly against the lawyers. And they're not happy with me because you can get damages for 100,000, but you can get egregious behavior for hundreds of thousands.
I know, that's a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
When you and I spoke a long time ago, I still remember so much of that interview just without even rereading it. You told me back then, when you were going through all of that, what really scared you was the prospect of going to jail, which they had threatened you potentially with. Of all the times you have been threatened, of all the things that you went through, does that experience of being threatened to go to jail, does that remain the thing that still scared you the most after all these years?
Well, how about having two armed ex-Secret Service guardians who protected me daily, opened my mail.
They opened your mail.
Yeah. And then because I was scared they started my car in the morning. They followed me to school. But the most scariest part was finding a bullet in my mailbox addressed to my daughters.
That was addressed to your daughter?
Yeah. I
never knew that. I thought the bullet was just in your mailbox. I never knew that was addressed to your daughters. God, I can't imagine what you went through then.
And an envelope with a letter and a .350, a large pistol, Israeli cartridge, primed and ready to go. And that scared me. I carried a gun after that.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I know you have children. I remember you telling me when the movie premiered, you took them to the movie and it gave them a better sense of what it was that you went through, even if the movie wasn't maybe, completely true, but it was close enough that they got the point.
It was a docudrama.
Yeah, it was terrific. It was a great movie. Since that time, did you ever, as they got older, did you ever sit down with them? Did they ever ask you where you could explain them why you did what you did and what happened? Because they were young, they were pretty young at the time.
Yeah, they were 5 and 7.
They didn't have any idea.
I had no
Have you-
idea.
Have you talked to them about it since then?
They've been with me at a number of events, which I basically told the story,
Mhm.
and they got it. I don't, the divorce was not pretty,
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
and my ex, what do I want to call her? I'm going to be polite, but she lives in Texas, in Plano, to be exact.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, Jones Day little firm.
Uh-huh.
She worked with them, accepted funding to stop the movie from being released because she felt that she was unreasonably characterized as a good a gold digger.
Really? I did not think the movie characterized her as that at all. It characterized her as someone who was angry at her husband for going through all that stuff, as opposed to just taking the money and living in Louisville in a nice house.
Yeah. One nice house to another nice house.
So, all right. What do you? We've got time for probably one more question, Doctor.
How much time do you have?
About 3 more minutes. About
Oh,
3 more minutes. About 3 more minutes. No, this has been great. You're always
Um,
wildly entertaining. So for the person out there, let's think about attacking a parent. Attacking is the wrong word. Addressing a parent. A parent has a child who they know now is experimenting in marijuana use or vaping or cigarettes. How should the parent talk to the child to dissuade them from using it?
Well, hopefully the parent that's going to provide the advice to their child doesn't use the stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Second is become knowledgeable. There are many hazards out there that you can learn about by learning from it, teaching. Okay. There is a whole process of creating knowledge in children. In the 3rd grade, I do it. I know it. I watch them with their input afterwards, and they attest to their questions. Okay, and what they've absorbed. Show them that secondhand smoke is not nothing. Take it in a smoke chamber. I have a smoking Sally device, which will smoke a cigarette inside by puffing it, and watch the windows of the glass of the polycarbonate build up, and then I go in and wipe it. And they get to see that what's on the walls, in terms of having the same thing in a smoke-free environment, is things that you'll breathe.
Oh.
And we know that there's an equivalency between active and passive smoking. You do die from passive smoking.
You do die from passive smoking.
That means you're breathing somebody else's cigarette when you choose not to breathe or smoke.
Do you remember the days when we used to have smoking sections in airplanes?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it's the same as a no peeing pool.
I really want to thank you for your time today and all the time that I've bugged you in the past. You remain absolutely my favorite interview. And I've been fortunate to interview some really interesting people in my life. There's no one more interesting or courageous than I've ever interviewed than you. And I wish you the very best of continued good health and continued success in your fight in what is a worthy endeavor.
Well, I think so. So
All right.
I keep going.
It's fantastic. Take care of yourself, Doctor. I'll be in touch.
Have a happy holiday. Have a safe holiday.
Thank
And
you.
spread the news.
I will. Thanks, Doctor. Take care.